So now it is our time to go all the way to Sweden and learn about AI government practices there. And for this, I would like to invite Snall, who is the Chief Digital Officer in charge of the Division Digital Development at the National Agency for Digital Governance in Sweden. And he is acting in this role since December 2020. Earlier, he was Chief Innovation Officer and Chief Digital Officer at the Swedish Agency for Mapping, Cadastre and Land Registration. Snall has been in the business of digital development for decades. And he even has a motto for the way he does things. And the motto is, forward always. Do say a lot what counts. So let's invite Mats to join us on the stage. Hello, Mats.
Hello.
It's great to have you here. So did the motto sound right? And how did you come up with it?
I came up with it looking at the Marvel series. Luke Cage.
Yeah.
Recommend that. Forward always is a good thing to have when you talk about digital transformation and innovation.
And I know that many people get inspired by reading fantasy books, especially working in technology fields and creating some fantastic innovations. So we look forward to your presentation and to understand more of what's happening in Sweden.
Great. Thank you for inviting me and having me here. I'm very glad to be here and share our thoughts on digital government and especially government for AI, of course, because AI is the topic of this session. I come from the Agency for Digital Government in Sweden, and this agency is in some way special agency for digital development for the reason of the whole public sector. And we try to develop AI abilities, of course, who can be shareable and used by the whole public sector. As for now, we are in the middle of a government assignment to build some of those abilities. And one part of that assignment is actually about building a trust model or developing a trust model for AI. And this is the major topic for this speech as well. So the Swedish AI governance is now today about a model of trust, as I would like to say. But what's the background to this? Well, everybody knows about the global challenges we have. Some of them are mentioned here. Everybody, of course, knows about the pandemic and the COVID-19. We, as well as a lot of other agencies in Sweden, are, of course, very much involved in this pandemic handling of the pandemic consequences. But we do also see the climate changes. We have a lot of challenges when it comes to demographical issues. We see that in social welfare, that there will be a loss of a lot of people supporting and working within social welfare. And a lot of public services depend on people that we won't have in the future. And we also see the power of finances, politics and democracies as well, and the global impact on Sweden as well as on any country today. So there's a lot of challenges to meet, and we think that automation and the development of machine and software and algorithms and such things are crucial to handle these challenges. We are quite automized in Sweden today. We have a lot of developed digital services in our public sector. And a year in 2019, 13 responding public agencies said that they acted out about 148 million decisions regarding private persons and companies. And that says something about it, because we have more than 13 public agencies. We have about 400, and together with the municipalities, we have about 700 or 800 different public agencies. So you can imagine that there's a lot of decisions and processes handled in automized ways today. But of course, these automized processes is not about AI, it's logical algorithms and program softwares done with that. We have, in fact, very little AI implemented in the public sector. But we think that the AI will be the next standard, of course, for automation. And we think that it will be also a new level of automation stated for everyone when it comes to AI. Because now when we have the traditional way, we see that we can do a lot, but when we see AI more automized and a much better quality, we will see that we will reach new levels of services as well with automized processes. As I said, there's still a lot to do in this area. We have just come a little bit or a few steps in a long journey of development here. Right now, we think that just 25% or even less than that is actually in use. And we see that great potential for the whole public sector to work with AI and get automized in a much bigger way. A year ago, we presented a report from our agency, and we did quite work to analyze how much it would mean if we could actually do all things full with AI. And we saw that about 140 billion per year could be earned in more efficiency within the public sector if we could actually use the full potential of AI. So that's really, really something to work for. And as I said, it's quite much needed, because we see that we will have so much less people working for us due to the demographical challenges. So if we have a lot of more AI, we trust the services as they are right now. We trust them very well. We know them quite much. And we in Sweden are in particular very, very confident in using public services. And we usually get great response when we ask the people, do you trust the public sector? Yes, we do. And some of the agencies are more trusted, of course, but we really do think that the public sector is great for Sweden. Anyway, one can say that if you go on with AI, and you were talking about, you asked me, and we talked about Marvel series, and we talked about comics, and we talked about fiction. Of course, when you look at fiction, and when you talk about AI, and when you especially talk about autonomous AI, then you could see that maybe you could feel that it would be a little bit less trustworthy. And in order to meet this, we need to talk about trust in public services and trust in AI. It's important that we build this ability with good care, we think. This is a quote from the review they did when they learned about the automized decision taking I talked about earlier, and it was something they saw in that was that automized decision taking lead to more efficiency and, in fact, better legal certainty. But it doesn't always do that, because when you have some sort of malpractice in this processes, then it may lead to very bad consequences, because it will be a very systematic failure. And then if you happen to have that, it will reduce the confidence for the public sector and the services very much if you happen to have that. So in order to meet that, we need to work with a lot of things. And I think you will recognize some of the factors for trustworthy AI is known to you when I present them here. We talk about ethics, we talk about morale, we talk about bias, and we talk about the need of having explainable AI, and we talk about the problematic issue of having a black box issue with AI, that you can't really explain how the AI works. And all this is the reason for the idea we had once, and which we have now developed quite much to meet this, that we need to explain the AI, we need to have the ways of earning confidence for AI and to do better when it comes to explain the whole thing. So what have we done then, or what are we actually working to implement now in order to meet this? We call it a trust model for AI and automated decision taking. So this trust model is something that we think will work well in order to meet and to do good when it comes to build confidence for AI, and that people will go on trust the public sector processes. And what is the trust model then? Well, it's both a communication system documentation and logging of different versions. We see that we will have this model work for several reasons and several causes, and we will also see that it could be very easy for anyone, depending on what kind of purpose you have to investigate this particular AI you're looking at, to use this model to come to a better understanding of that particular model. So in the first layer, we see that it could be some sort of trust certificate that you actually just sign the AI model or the process or the service that is used by a citizen, that particular citizen could see that this service is based on an AI and it's declared to be according to the trust model. So that could just be a certification you see on a website or in an app or anywhere you can see this service with an AI. The next level could be some sort of certificate, or I see now that I have written the wrong headline here. It should actually be trust certificate on the highest level, and the next I'm now explaining, the second from the top, is an overview with information. So this is an information overview for the trust model, which could be a sort of explanation, a description of how the service works and what the AI actually do for this service. So it's just an easy explanation declaring this is an AI service and it works like this. The third level from the top is content, and that is just content description. This is what the AI model, the content of the AI model. This is the data, this is the system, this is the algorithm, this is the version, and maybe also an ID of the particular AI, if we could see that that is something that could be useful. And this content is described fairly well, but not in detail, because the details is found in the fourth layer of this trust model, which is the trust model card. And this layer is very much inspired from other sorts of system descriptions for AI. You can look at the Google model card or any other kind of description of AI models you can see which is also done in order to have more explainable AI. And the trust model card, that is the real content out of the content description you found on the layer 3. And this is much more wide and deep and more describing every part of the AI model. So here you can actually find the exact content of the data you have used, maybe how you describe all the algorithms, if you have used open source algorithms, or what you have done to them, if you have modified them, and so on and so on. All the versions you can see here, you can see the traceable changes you have done over the years or over the time you have used this model. And also you have a declaration of what kind of regulations you have for this particular area, or if you have some sort of ethical values you have used or followed when you have developed this model, and so on. So this trust model card is the real content and description and the almost everything you can read and share about this model. And the fifth level is actually a log, and our original thought about this would that we could also use another front runner technology like blockchain or something like that, which is not possible to change, and it's very useful for sharing information and sharing such content that you need to in some way keep safe from being destroyed or tampered with. So we say that we needed some sort of log that you can always see that this version was the one that was working at that particular time for that particular decision or process or service that was used. So that is the different layers and the content of the trust model for AI and automated decisions that we see. And we have tried this on some implementations of AI so far, and we will do that a little bit more now and test it out within this government assignment we have. And from that, we will then extract it or generate a general model that possibly will be used within the Swedish public sector at least. And of course, anyone can use it, so it's not something that we don't want anyone else to use. And we also think that this model will be very much something that meets the AI regulation from the EU level later on. So we have that in mind as well, that this could actually be used in a much wider perspective later on. So to summarize it, I think the formula for trustful AI is actually to have a declaration of the organizational competence and ability, a declaration of the machine and AI competence and ability, and of course then transparency to a relevant degree of all this. And I think the trust model for AI will be something about this. And I hope that answers some of the questions you have when it comes to trustful AI, and I'm happy to answer any question on that now or later. Thank you.
Thank you, Mats, for sharing your overview. And speaking of readiness, do you think that Swedish public sector is ready to be digitalized, to have so much AI innovations inside of it? Is the infrastructure ready? Is the mindset ready? Do you have enough ambition to do that?
Yes and no. As I said, we are it's a great number of agencies in Sweden, and that is one of our challenges, but it's also one of our main good conditions, of course, because we can see that we have a wide spread on things when we finally have it. We have a high degree of digital services, and we are quite digital in Sweden. When it comes to AI, we still have a lot of things to do, and a lot of agencies are not ready, of course, but we are in the transformation phase, and we think that it's going rapidly forward. And of course, all things will lead somewhere, but I think, as my motto says, we are going forward, fast forward.
But you are a country known for innovations and startups. Do you get a lot of startups lining up that would want to cooperate and work with public sector?
Yes, yes, absolutely. And there's a lot of startups within the AI industry in Sweden, and sometimes I almost think that there are too many startups and too many want to be somewhere with someone all the time. That is one of our problems. We are quite a few number of people in Sweden compared to many other countries, and we always like to do something in cooperation with others. I think that is one of the formulas for having this high degree of innovation. But we are doing good. I think we are doing good because sometimes it tends to take a little while before we get started. But when we finally start up, then it goes rapidly forward.
Well, Mats, I have an easy solution for you. If you have too many startups, please send a couple or I don't know, 10 or 20 to Lithuania. We'll be happy to welcome them as our AI community is still growing. But coming back to your topic today, speaking about the governance and what other countries could learn from you, for example, a country like Lithuania, what would be the starting point? Like you explained the model in a very detailed way, you may be already one step ahead. So where should be the core focus right now?
I think the core focus is actually not on the technology. It's more like that you need, if you look for confidence for the organizational or for the even state perspective. Do good things and people will trust you. I think it takes some time, but I think also put energy on doing things good on the general level, and don't think about the technology all the time. But then we are in a time when technology means a lot, but I think technology comes with the rest, and not the rest with comes with technology.
But what about Swedish ambition to become like a well-recognized name in the European context? As currently UK is number one for its AI startups and what kind of innovations are created there. Currently, Sweden is so known for all its sustainability activities, but maybe there is some room for some boost for AI initiatives as well.
Yes, of course, and sometimes you feel like this is a competition or something like that, and the competition is actually against the challenges. We need to meet these challenges, which I counted up, which I mentioned in the beginning. I think that is the competition we have. Don't have a competition with the UK or other countries or so. I think we should actually cooperate a lot more. When you mention it, so I think that a lot of good things come out with cooperation, both within each country, but also across borders, because the competition lies in the challenges and not with each other.
But leading the agenda is usually a difficult task, as the ones who follow, they have a great example that they can copy and paste. But in your example, which countries do you see as a good example that you would like to compare yourself with or just get inspired?
Oh, that's a good question, because I want to be a diplomat here and say that every country has something to offer. But of course, we talk a lot with our neighboring countries because of course it's easy when we have this almost the same language, and it's easy to speak because we have almost the same administrational organization and so on. So it's easy to compare with Finland, with Norway, with Denmark, of course. But We also see that we have a lot of similarities with you in the Lithuania. We talked to Estonia the other day. We had a round table dialogue with Estonian at the Estonian embassy, and we do really think that there are so much things we can do together with others, and especially with the Nordic and well. Almost anyone, but some we think we see that we have a lot of similarities with. So it's easy to work with countries maybe that are not that big as many others.
Yeah, as we learned during the whole conference today, the cooperation, bringing different features to the table is also what matters. And we've just heard in the previous conversation that natural language processing and creating this multilingual Europe will definitely change a game for all of us.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Mats, very much for joining us today. And
Thank you.
enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you. Thank you very much.